Hello everyone and welcome to session 11 of the RMS Online Masterclass series. I'm Dave Jones and this time we're talking about dynamic pricing and not just the application but lots of tips and tricks on basic yield management. Stand by. So today's video is all about optimizing rates to help increase occupancy and maximize returns. There'll be a few links that we'll talk about during the video and I'm going to place those in the description, so just click on that for those. One of the important ones is if you have any questions that come up from this session and you'd like those to be answered by one of our support team, click on the link below in the description and fill out the form and somebody will come back to you. Okay, so let's start at the pointy end and talk about revenue management systems, which rather awkwardly has the same initials as RMS, but moving on. What these systems do is use a powerful algorithm to analyse your data, your history, your rates and occupancy, pickup. Also, it compares your business to your competitors in your region and other factors to come up with an optimised rate. RMS integrates with some of the world's leading revenue management systems. I'm going to leave a link in the description to this page so you can find out more about those systems. Revenue management systems do cost money and there's a little bit of setup, but they do work and they certainly will give you a return. For anyone operating a medium to large enterprise, I strongly recommend having a good look at revenue management systems. Okay, now a lot of what we're going to talk about today is based on the assumption that you're using the RMS Bar Multi rate system. Now, if you're not, that's okay. Stick around. It's all still relevant. But if the Bar Multi rate system is something that you think you might like to use, and I can tell you it makes life a lot easier. It's much more flexible and far easier to change rates. It's kind of like your little built-in yield management system. Strongly recommend it. We covered it in detail in session 1. I'll put a link to that video in the description. We also touched on the topic again, and sort of a little bit of a deeper dive in session 5. So I'll put a link of that to that one as well. Strongly recommend that you have a look at those. But stick around and I'm going to review Bar Multi again in just a minute. Okay, so just by way of a quick review of Bar Multi. Now, if I'm here in the rate manager screen, if I expand by hitting the plus sign there, if I expand out my budget rooms, 3-person, you'll see that I have a rate down here for every one of my bar rates that I've set up. And I'll show you in a minute, just very, very quickly, how we set that up. But in detail, you'll see that in session 1. I've named them bar 2, bar 3, bar 4, all the way down to 9. And I've also got one called auto, and I'll explain that. So all we've done is we've gone out and created a rate table for every bar rate. So we've said, and bar stands for best available rate. So I've got 9 of those, 9 best available rates. And there they are, you can see them on the right hand side. But how does RMS know which one of those to apply on any given day? Well, that's very simple. And that's just a matter of changing what we see in this row here in the bar rate row. So at the moment you can see my budget rooms 3-person are 138, and if you just look down that column you'll see all of the different room types have got their prices. But let's say I want to change that bar rate. Let's say I want to change that to something a little bit more expensive. I can go set bar, and for that day, in that date range there, I can change it to whatever I like. You'll see that now all of the rates for each of the room types has gone up. So how do we use that in a practical sense? So there's a couple of things we can do. We can now go through every day of the year, and we could do that one by one if we like. Understanding that we're no longer using seasons, we're using these bar rates for each day. Now, I could literally go to each day of the year from now till then and just change one of those individually. That would drive you insane and would take a very long time. So the sort of thing I could do, I could set my bar, but this time I might do it for a longer date range. I might say, well, all the way until the end of October, I'm happy to have, say, I don't know, bar 2, bar 3, there you go. And I might say, well, that's what I want to do. And you can see that it's extended. The other thing we could do if we go into the control panel, and we're going to create a new restriction, and I think it's called Set Daily Bar, and it's right down the bottom, Set Daily Bar. And the sort of things I could do here, I could say, well, for the next, I don't know, couple of months, I want to have a bar rate of whatever, but I might also say, but yeah, I only want that on, Sundays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, for example. I'll just go back one. You could complicate it even more with this occupancy thing, but we'll talk about other ways of doing that in a minute. We could then say which room types we want this to apply to, and then we can choose the bar rate that we want to have, and let's say it's bar 4. So you can get a little bit more surgical if you wanted to do it that way, and you can get lots of bar rates set in a very short period of time. Okay, and I'll just exit out of there. So that's some of the ways that you could change that bar rate. Now, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, I actually have people who pay me to change the bar rate. They tell me what they want to charge, and I charge, and I'm literally just doing what I just showed you then. It's very, very simple, but this is what I think happens in the minds of some folks. I think they think that, they're sort of going to make a mistake, or they're going to charge the wrong rate, and it's kind of easy to get somebody else to do it. It's not difficult. And what I always say to people is that, I could speak to just about any accommodation provider in the world and give them 3 random dates through the year, and they would know if that's a period of peak demand or not. And you could apply a bar rate that would suit those conditions. However, and so you could go through the whole year and you could, put your bar rates in and you'd be pretty close. But the beauty of this system is as things change, as you get slightly nearer to a date, or as you find out about an event, maybe weather is changing, maybe something's going to happen in town, maybe, for whatever reason, you expect that things are going to be busier or less busy, you can very, very quickly change the rates for a day, 2 days. You can do that 5 times a day if you wanted to, as things are changing. Now, you probably wouldn't, but for example, as the property's filling, maybe unexpectedly, you think, gee, there's more people in town than I thought. You could change the bar up, ratchet that price up, just to get a little bit more benefit out of the last few rooms. So Bar Multi is a great way of sort of like a little manual yield management system, but very, very effective because you know things, you see things, you're aware of things that algorithms aren't. So I'm a huge fan of Bar Multi, and I think even if you're not going to use it that way, I think just for the ease of setting up, it's really a great system to use. So whether you're using Bar Multi or just the traditional method of rate setting in RMS that we've had available for 30 years, there are still some little things you can do to optimize rates. And I've been doing this for a long time, speak to a lot of people, and there are an amazing number of properties out there who use what I call static rates, where it's the same rate every day of the week, every week of the year, forever. Every room type, every, Saturdays, Sundays, public holidays, all exactly the same rate. Okay, if that's what you want to do. And when I ask people why they do that, they say, I like to keep it simple. Yep, simple's good. But there are some little ways. I'm going to show you just a couple of little things that you might want to contemplate doing at your property, and doesn't need to be Bar Multi. It can be just the traditional process, and we'll just have a look at those now. Okay, now here's the first one, and it might seem a little bit obvious. Let's have a look anyway. Let's go to the rates icon and go down to rate tables, and let's create a new rate table. Now, the first one is day of the week. Now, you don't have to put in the same rate for every day of the week. And if you've got a business that's heavily leans towards weekend traffic, then, you might want to make your rooms a little bit more expensive on Fridays and Saturdays, for example. And let's just put in some sort of random figure here. And so if we want more on the weekends, maybe we want to make that $200, and maybe Saturday night, maybe even $225, something like that. So just even with a simple rate table, we can get some flexibility. I'll get out of there for a moment. The next one is, as you're going through the year, and let's say it's today and our occupancy is reasonably high, and we say, well, For our last few rooms, wouldn't it be nice to get a little bit more? Now, if you're using the Bar Multi system, you might do something like this. You might say, well, today, looking at Sunday the 22nd of October, we are using bar 3, and I would like to just increase that. We can very manually just go down to bar 3 here and type in whatever you like. Let's keep it reasonable. And we can update it as quickly as that. You'll see that when I go back now, you can see that my bar 3 on this particular day for this particular room type is more than normal. We can see that it's been changed because it's now in red. Once again, might seem manual, but if you're viewing these things very intently and if you're sort of right on the ball, this is a very, very simple way of increasing some yield. You know, $20 here, $25 there, multiplied by a number of rooms, multiplied by quite a few days is, you know, serious money. That would be another way to do it as well. Another way to do it is if we go into the control panel again, we're going to create a restriction here, and we might want to do a rate adjustment or a rate override. Let's do the adjustment first. So same thing, and we might do this for, you know, a number of days. We might say, well, look, for the next couple of months, say up to there, let's say that, I don't know, maybe just on the weekends, just on Fridays and Saturdays, we would like to adjust it by adding an amount of, say, $34 a night. We might even say, and this is where you might use this occupancy one, you might say, well, I'll only do that when we get to an occupancy level of 75%. So just a really nice little bit more order. You've got to set this up, obviously, but it's just going to tick along. Every time you hit 75%, your rates are going to go up by whatever number we pumped into there. You could do it by percentage as well, or maybe you want to do it the other way. Maybe you want to drop the price, and we'll talk about that in a sec as well. So that's something else you might like to do. The other one we looked at there is the rate override, which is putting a different rate. So it's not increasing it or decreasing it, it's putting in a different rate. All of the rules are the same, and you can be very specific about how you want to apply that. Now, regular viewers to the show will know that I love to divide the world's population into two groups. And the two groups I'm talking about at the moment, the first group is those operators who can't bear to have the last room empty. They want to have maximum occupancy all the time. In the old days, I used to work with a lot of motel operators, Best Western Choice, all of those, and some independent operators as well. And often they would say to me that, you know, if there's one room left and somebody happens to walk in off the road, there's no way they're getting out the door until they've booked that room, no matter how much, even if they have to drop the rate by 50%, that person is not getting out until they've booked the room. They're all about getting the last room full. There are other people that I've spoken to where yield is more important, and they're more than happy to leave a room empty if they can't get the amount they want. Neither system is right or wrong, it's just the way you prefer. But it relates to the next thing I'm going to show you, depending on which group of people you fit into. So let's go and have a look at that now. Okay, so we're back in the rate manager. I'm going to the rates icon. I'm going to rate types. I'm going to derived rates, and let's have a look at this one called advanced purchase. And this is a rate that is derived from the Bar Multi rate. So whatever the rate is for the particular day, this is going to be a derivative of that rate. But you'll see in this box down here that I'm saying that this rate is only available from 30 days from today. So the way that you would use this in your social media campaigns or any sort of marketing, you would be saying book now for a period in the future, you know, book today for next February, whatever, and you will get this special rate. So it's an incentivizer. And the result is you're going to get, hopefully, more bookings with longer lead times if that's what you would like to do. There's a couple of things that you can do specifically. So number one, you're going to choose the number of days that you're going to have this out. You might want to have new minimum and maximum nights. You might say, well, look, you can book this thing in advance, and it is going to be cheaper, but there will be a different minimum or maximum night stay. You might want to round to the nearest dollar so you don't get all sorts of strange numbers. Let's also go and have a look at the adjustment amount. And in this particular case, I've said that it's a minus percentage of 25. So and each room type could be different. They don't all have to be the same. And it's going to apply a discount of 25% or an adjustment. I'm also saying when this is available. So I've actually picked some specific dates when this will apply. If it's not for the dates in these particular periods, then you won't be able to see it. The other thing I've done here is if we go into extra details, you'll see that I've put a different cancellation policy here. And this is kind of key to the whole thing. So the cancellation policy I'm using with this particular rate type is a no refund policy. So the sort of thing you might do is say, hey, look, I've got this red hot deal, book now for next July, and it's really, really inexpensive, but guess what? There's no refund. And I can tell you there are actually companies around, many of them, who are using this type of thing as a line item in their balance sheets. You know, this is a way of making money for nothing. You can create these sort of deals. A given percentage of people will never make it, like who knows what you're doing next July. Can't come, guess what? We're keeping the money. So that's not a bad little thing there. The next one is, and let's just create a rate type, is for the other group of people, and this one is a last minute rate, and this is for those folks that can't stand to have empty rooms. And I'm coming to you today from the Gold Coast, and I'm showing my age now, but years ago, before the internet, before booking online, people used to fly up and even drive up from the southern states to come to the Gold Coast, and they'd stay in these beautiful, luxurious apartment buildings. And rather than book in advance, they would actually just turn up and wander from building to see if there are any standby rates. And quite often, going back to when there were travel agents who were charging high commissions, I think it still goes on, you would be able to walk in and get these red hot deals. Now, in the days of online bookings, this is a way that you can do one of these standby rates. So if it is the day or the day before or the day before the day before, and you want to drop the rate for those people that are looking for a deal that are going to fill the last rooms. And remembering, if it is a situation where you are managing a property on behalf of individual owners, you're trying to do the right thing by them. You don't want their rooms to be empty. So this is a way that you could do that. And let's just quickly touch on derived rates, which is a great way of applying a different rate based on an existing. You can use that in a lot of ways. For example, if you look at my online rate here, you'll see that I haven't applied an adjustment amount at all. It's a zero adjustment amount. I'm just saying that this is the rate I want to use online, and in fact, it is the Bar Multi rate. Let's look at a different one here. Let's say I want to do a social media. Maybe I want to use my bar rates, but I want to apply a discount when I've got a link on the Book Now button on, say, Facebook, and then I might want to put in an adjustment amount of, say, less a percentage. We might say we're going to do a discount of 10%. We're going to apply that to them all. So very, very quick and simple ways of creating deals that can then be used in different places. So derived rates, really good idea to get your head around that. Now, one thing that is reasonably new, and when you think about the Bar Multi rate type, it's actually not a rate type that's meant to be applied to reservations. It's really a settings, it's really a systems rate. What we really need to do is set up a new derived rate, and it will be from the Bar Multi, but it can just be called anything at all. You might call it the standard rate or something like that. Once again, you wouldn't apply an adjustment. It is just a copy. It is a reflection of whatever the bar is at the moment. The reason you want to do that is because you don't necessarily want your staff seeing the Bar Multi setup. You don't really want them getting involved in that. They want to just have the rate that they use. And of course, if you do that, you can put different rules and regulations and things in the rate that they're actually going to see. So what I recommend you do is go into your security profiles and hide from them, from your staff, the rate type called Bar Multi. So you would let them see the one that you've called the standard rate or whatever it is, but bar multi would actually be hidden over here so that they can't see it. And the manager should be the only person that has access to bar multi. So this is a new little feature that you might want to take advantage of. Okay, so after all of that preamble, let's get to the nitty-gritty of dynamic pricing. And what exactly is dynamic pricing? It's the ability to automatically change the rate dependent on the occupancy. But the occupancy of what? It can either be on the basis of the whole property. So let's say we've got 100 rooms and 80 of those are booked for a particular night. That means we're at 80% occupancy. Nice and simple. Really good if all of our room types are sort of homogenous. All the rooms are fairly similar. But if we've got lots of room types and they're different either by configuration, price point, popularity, then you might want to base the occupancy by each category. Makes a lot of sense. But if you have lots of categories that have small numbers of rooms, such as, 3 or 4 or 1 room per category, obviously that's not going to work. In that case, you're going to want to use a group of properties. I'm going to show you how to use that. And to be honest, 9 times out of 10, it's the one I would recommend. Let's have a look. So let's look at the simple options first. I went over to Setup in the side menu, down to Property Options, Property Information. Then I've chosen the property that I want to look at. I've gone here down to Options, and I can choose either property or room type. Now we're going to use groups of room types. So I'm going to start off with room type. Now I'm going to go to Lookup Tables. I'm going to go all the way down to Grouping. I'm going to create some new groups, and this one is for room type. And this one I'm going to call family rooms. Now when I go into room type room, and remember you've probably called this something else like apartment/apartment type, something like that. So I've got quite a few room types that hold lots of people, which I'm calling family rooms. I'll go into each one of those. I'll go down to extra details, and I will choose a dynamic pricing grouping. And this one is going to be family rooms. Simple as that. Just do that to each category that, in this particular case, we're calling a family room. So now when RMS is looking for a rate to apply, it's going to group those room types together and see what the occupancy for the group is before it applies the rate. Now, before we go on, I just want to do a quick review of Bar Multi, or multi-bar, whatever you like to call it. Understanding how that all works is going to help us choose whether we want to use that system for our dynamic pricing or whether you just want to use the old static rates. Let's have a look at that. So there's always something to turn on. In this case, Setup, Accounting, Accounting Options. Then I'm over here at Rate and Rent Options, and I've put the check in the box next to Use Multiple Best Available Rates, BAR, Best Available Rate. So if you want to use Bar Multi, this is the first thing you have to do is turn that on. Now let's go over to the Rate Manager, and I'm going to click on this icon here with the $sign, which is about rates. First of all, we're going to look at rate types. These are all of the rate types I've created for my bars. I've got 10 because this first one that I've named Auto, and it's just a name, so don't get too excited, it's just a name. They are my 9 bar rates. Just quickly talking about that, how many bar rates you decide to have will depend on how much you want the increments to be. So for example, if the craziest price that you would ever charge is, I don't know, say $80 a night, and the most expensive, ridiculous rate for the same room might be, say, $300, then you'd want lots of bars because you wouldn't want the increments to jump up too much in one go. Like you wouldn't want it to go from, say, 100 to 150, perhaps. So factor that into your considerations when you're deciding how many bars you want. Now, all I've done, I'll just go into bar 2, for example. All I've done is check this box down here that this is one of my best available rates. Okay, so we're not going to go too deep into this. I'm sort of hovering over the top because it's really just a review, just in case you've got absolutely no idea what Bar Multi is. This is what it is. The next one we'll look at is rate periods. Now, the huge saver in Bar Multi is the fact that we, for the most part, only have one very, very long rate period, or one rate season, if you prefer to call it that. And you can see that I've got one that goes here from the 15th of April 2022 all the way to the 30th of June 2024. And then I've got another one that starts on the 1st of July and goes all the way through to 2026. And for the most part, I'm going to use this one down here for the whole time. Everything I set up is just the one rate period. I've got a couple of little ones here that I use for, maybe some deals, some specials, all that sort of stuff. We can talk about that later. The next thing is the rate tables. So what I'm going to need, and let's have a look at this one, for example, I'm going to need one of these for every bar rate for every category. Now, when you go through and do if you've done rate tables before, you know that there's a lot of setup to do in all of these tabs. So what's not a bad idea is to create some templates, and you might, for example, set up a template for each of your room types, and then you just copy that rate table. Don't start from scratch every time or you'll send yourself nuts, particularly when we start talking about dynamic pricing, because there's a lot of clickety click, click, click. And great if you can just do that once. So what you do is you'd create your rate table here, you'd put your prices in here. Most of this stuff down the left would be the same, maybe slight changes. And then when you copy a rate table, all you've got to do is just change the numbers in here. So that's a little bit of a trick. So we need one of these for every category, for every bar rate. Now, the last one to look at is the lookups. So let's have a look at that, the rate lookups. So what we're going to do, and it is simply a matter of, so we'll start off with the rate type, and we might say we're going to start with bar 2. I'm skipping auto for a very good reason. I'll show you in a minute. For bar 2, and we'd say, right, now here are my budget rooms. I've got 2 types of budget rooms, same rate table, so that's convenient. And then, as we said before, we're just using this one season here, and then all I need to do is find my bar 2 budget rate. So if I put bar 2 there, and in this case it's this one here, I would save and exit, and that's my first one. And I just have to do a lookup now for every combination of rate type and category and rate. Okay, just depending on how many room types you've got, might take a long time. If it's a fairly simple operation, it won't take very long at all. I'm not going to save that because I've already got one. So that's kind of how we set up our bars. That's it takes 3 hours to explain this. I've done it in 2 minutes, but hopefully you sort of get the idea. So back in the rate manager, you can see that I've set bars for different days moving forward. And whatever bar rate I choose for those days, that rate won't change. I've manually chosen those rates, and that won't change unless I manually come in here. For example, on Wednesday the 1st of November, I could set bar and I could make it something else. I could make it bar 8, for example, and that will change the rate for that day. But none of these rates are being affected by dynamic pricing except this one here that I've called auto. Let me show you how that's going to work. If we go back into our rate tables and I go to budget auto, so my budget rooms for the auto rate, let's have a look at what I've done. You'll see that over in the left hand side here, I have told this rate table to change the rate depending on the occupancy. So you can see that the default is 0 to 100%. But then when the occupancy is, for example, between 20 and 30%, it's going to change the rate to the bar 2 rate. When it gets from 31 to 40% occupancy, it's going to change it to bar 4, etc., etc., and on it goes all the way. Let's go in and do that now for one of my other room types and see how that all works. So my next room types are my apartment 4-person. So I'm back here in the rate tables and I've searched for apartment, and here are all the bar rates for my apartment 4-person. I'm not going to change any of the others from 2 through to 9, but I am going to change the one that I've called Apartment Auto. So you can see that my base rate, if you like, the lowest rate is $110 a night. But now when I choose auto as the daily bar rate, I want the rate to move when the occupancy moves. So this is how I would do it. I would go over here to the dynamic pricing section, click on this one, which is occupancy, and I'm going to add one. Now I might start at, say, 20% to 30%. And I can adjust it in several ways. Now, if you're just using the normal traditional rate system in RMS, you might just want to do one of these, and you're just going to minus or plus by percentage or amount. And you could just keep doing that. You could just increment it up, $20 a night, $30 a night, whatever you like. Nice and simple, and you could do that. What I'm probably recommending you do, though, is go down to this bottom one and say use existing rate. And we're going to go apartment. This time we're going to say bar 2. So we're going to say when the occupancy is between, I think I put 200 there, which wouldn't work, 20 and 30, we want the rate to change automatically to the bar 2 rate. So I can do a save and next. Now the next one would be 31 to, and it could be anything. I'm making it 31 to 40, but it can be whatever occupancy bracket you want it to be. And this time I'm saying I want it to be apartment bar 3. I think you can see the pattern here. I'm just going to keep going through these until I've got all of the options covered. And this one is, I've already confused myself, but I think we're up to bar 4, etc., etc. Now I'm just going to save and exit there, and you can see it's just a matter of creating that. Now I don't have to do it for every bar rate. I only need to do it for the ones that I'm calling auto. There would be no point in doing this for every bar rate. Just do it once. Now, remember we talked before, and I'm assuming that everyone wants to just keep ratcheting up the price as the occupancy of the building increases. But remember we did talk about those folks that just can't stand to have an empty room. They want every room full, and they're willing to drop the price to have that happen. So we could do one of these time ones. Let's create a new time one. And the way you might use this, you might say, well, 12 hours before midnight, so in other words, noon today, I want to change the rate. If I still have availability, I don't want the price to keep going up. I actually want it to come down, and I might go all the way down to, say, bar 3, just to make that really affordable and give me a better chance of selling that room. So that's something you could do as well, and that will override the occupancy consideration. And so how that would work moving forward, on the days where you absolutely know what you think the occupancy and the demand would be, you can preset the rate by choosing a bar rate. If you're not 100% sure, or you want to set the rate for a long way into the future and you're not really sure, you could simply choose auto as your bar rate for that period, and the occupancy will take care of adjusting the price accordingly. Now that's a lot to take in, a lot of information we've talked about in a short period of time. Today really was meant to be used in conjunction with session 1 and session 5. And if you go through the lot, hopefully you'll be starting to get a pretty good handle on how to use the rate system, bar multi, and dynamic pricing. Hope that's been useful. Please click the subscribe button. A like would be nice, and we'll see you next time for session 12. Thank you.